Okay guys, this is Otis's week 2 video recap. So I'm starting out by offering him the flirt pull for a minute or two before we get started here. Sometimes when I bring him into the training space, he knows that I have food and that we're ready to train. So sometimes he's more interested in me than the flirt pull, which is totally fine. But I do like to at least offer it to the puppies first before we get started. What do you think? Should we just get into it? So I'll offer this to him again about halfway through. Okay, Otis. So we're going to start with some review from week 1 before we move into the new things that we worked on in week 2. So the first thing we're going to do, and I do this at the beginning of each training session, is we're going to charge our reward marker. So I'll go ahead and do that now, maybe 4 times in a row. So as a reminder, when I'm charging that reward marker, I'm not asking Otis for any behaviors. This is just so that he has a really solid association between hearing the clip and getting a piece of food. Good job. Okay. We're going to review following a food lure. So as a reminder, I'm going to hold that food nice and flat in my hand, and my palm is going to be facing Otis. The goal is that I want him staying connected to my hand the whole time that we're moving. So I'm showing him the food, and then we're just going to take a couple steps together. Okay, and then making sure I practice with both hands. And then we've been continuing to pair this with his name as well. So I'm going to do the same exercise. I'm just going to say his name as we're moving. Otis. 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 What a good boy. Otis. Good job, buddy. Okay. The next thing that we worked on in week 1 is our hand targets. So in week 1, we started out by having that food in our hand and starting with it right up at the dog's snout so that they could smell it and start to lick that food. And then we quickly pulled our hand away. In week 2, I'm still going to use food, but I want to see if I can just present my hand to Otis and see if he'll target my hand. Otis, touch. Good boy. Otis, touch. Good man. Otis, touch. What a good boy. And then again, making sure I practice this behavior using both hands as well. Otis, touch. What a smart boy. Otis, touch. We'll do one more here. Otis, touch. What a good boy. Good job, bud. Okay. We've also been continuing to work on our sits in week 2. So in week 1, we were using a food lure to teach the dogs the position. In week 2, we're seeing if they will offer us that position without using a food lure. If Otis is struggling to get into position, I might kind of move my hand in the same motion that I did when I was using a food lure, but I still want to try it without food in my hand. So he's already offering me a sit position, so I'm going to toss a reset cookie to get him to move away. Go get it. And now I'm going to cue him. So no food in my hand. Otis, sit. What a good boy. Okay, so remember we're giving a couple follow-up cookies so that he's maintaining that duration. We're building duration right from the start. Okay, we're using okay as our release cue to let him know that he's done doing the behavior we asked and he can get out of position. So he keeps just offering me the sit. So again, I'm either going to toss a piece of food away to get him up, or I'm going to walk away to see if he'll kind of follow me. Go get it. Otis, sit. What a good boy. Okay, we're going to do one more here. Otis, sit. Good boy. Okay. Good job, bud. All right, I'm going to offer him the flirt pole for a minute before we move into the new stuff from week 2. Oh, you want to play? What is that? Oh, my goodness. Get it, bud. Yeah, good boy. Good job, buddy. Get it. So just as a reminder, when we're using the flirt pole with our puppies, if our dog is in possession of the toy, meaning it's in their mouth, I am not going to lift them up off the ground or pull them across the floor with it. What do you think, bud? Not too interested? All right, we're going to move on since he's not super interested in the flirt pole today. So new things we started to work on in week 2. The first one is down. So down is another stationary position that we're starting to teach the puppies. The easiest way to start to teach this is to start with your dog in a sit position. So I am going to use a food lure for this. And the idea is that I want Otis to stay connected to that piece of food the whole time. I'm just going to very slowly bring my hand down to the ground. As soon as his elbows touch, that's when I'm going to mark with my clicker and reward him right on the floor between his paws. So same as our sit, I'm going to reward him for duration because eventually we can develop this into a down stay. But I'm going to reward right on the floor to encourage him to stay in that position. So showing Otis the piece of food. Otis, down. And then as soon as elbows touch, that's what I'm marking with my clicker. Feeding him a few follow-ups right on the floor between his paws. And then still using that release cue to let him out of position. Okay, we'll do that again. Otis, down. What a good boy. Okay, good job, bud. We're going to do one more. Otis, down. See how slow I'm moving my hand? He's staying connected to it the whole time. That's the goal. Okay, good job, buddy. All right from here, we're going to move into our mat skills. So in week 1, our criteria was all 4 paws on the mat is what's going to get you paid. This week we're upping the criteria. I want Otis to offer me a sit or a down on the mat. However, I am not going to verbally ask him for a sit or a down because eventually when he has a solid understanding of the mat skill, we'll tell him place, and that's going to encompass him going into a down position and settling on the mat. So if I need to use food to help him, I can, but I'm not going to verbally say sit or down. I'm just going to be saying place. Otis, place. So he's already offering me a down. Beautiful. So I'm going to reward him right down on the mat, similar to what we were just doing with our downs. And I'm going to use that release cue to let him off of the mat. Okay. And I'm going to move the mat still. Otis, place. What a smart puppy. Okay. So I'm also making sure that I toss that reset cookie or that release cue cookie, Otis, place, in different directions. Because I don't want Otis to think he can only get off the mat in one direction. So I'll toss it in different directions each time. What a good boy. Okay, let's do one more. Otis, place. So I'm going to wait and see if he'll offer me. Yep, there we go. What a smart boy. Okay. All right, and then we're still picking up the mat and putting it away at this point when we're not working on it. Okay. The next thing we introduced in week 2 is the puppy's wearing a leash. So for this, criteria is pretty low this week. I'm going to get it on him and then we're going to move into our flying cookie game. So I just want him getting used to having the leash connected to his collar and then it dragging behind him. So the easiest way to get a leash on our puppies is to get them interested in a piece of food while they find the ring on their collar. and then dropping the food on the floor while we clip the leash to the collar. So I'm showing Otis some food and finding the ring on his collar that the leash is going to get connected to. You're so floofy, I can't find it. And then once I find that ring, dropping the food on the floor, so he's busy eating the food off the floor while I get him connected to that leash. Okay. So the next thing that we worked on in week 2 is called the flying cookie game. This is a really nice game, fun game to play with our puppies to start to work on some name recognition. So I'm going to show him a piece of food, I'm going to tell him go get it, send him out away from me. As he's finishing up that piece of food, I'm going to call him. As soon as he turns in response to his name, that's when I'm going to mark with my clicker and then feed him nice and close to me. Go get it. Otis. Good boy. Okay, I'm going to toss another one in a different direction. Go get it. Of course it went under the couch. Did you get it? Here. Let's try again. Go get it. Otis. Good boy. What a good man. Let's do a few more. Go get it. Otis. Good boy. Go get it. Otis. Good boy. Good job, buddy. And then when I'm ready to take the leash off, I'm going to do it pretty similar to how I got it on him. I'm going to get him licking a piece of food first before I go to reach for that leash. That way I can unclip it without him being too interested in it. Good job, buddy. Okay. The next new thing we worked on in week 2 is introducing the puppies to crate games. So we want our puppies to enjoy spending time in their crates. Playing crate games with them is a really great way to do that. So let me bring our crate out. Okay. So this week we are just rewarding the puppies for spending a little bit of duration in the crate. To start out, I'm not going to close the door. Maybe for our last rep we will if it's going well. But the other thing that we're working on is waiting for them to hear their release cue to let them out of the crate. So when I'm ready to let Otis out, I'm going to meet him right at the threshold with a piece of food and say okay before I let him out. So we're calling this kennel. So I'm going to mark with my clicker once all 4 paws are in. Otis, kennel. Okay. I'm going to give him a couple follow-ups for spending some little bit of time in the crate. And then when I'm ready to let him out, I'm meeting him at the threshold. Okay, tossing that piece of food away. Otis, kennel. What a good boy. Okay. We're going to do one more, but I'm going to close the crate door this time. Otis, kennel. What a smart boy. So I'm going to click on reward again after I shut the door. And then as long as he remains calm with the door shut, I'll give him a couple follow-ups. What a good boy. And then again, meeting him right at the threshold when I open the door and using his release cue to let him out. What's this one? Okay. Good boy. Good job, Otis. All right. So the last thing we worked on in week 2 is introducing some grooming tools to the puppies. So we're using a hairbrush as well as nail clippers today. So we are not clipping the puppy's nails. We're just getting them used to seeing and feeling the nail clippers. All right. Let me get in position here. I'm going to do this sitting on the floor. Okay, hi, bud. So I'm going to start with the hairbrush. Okay. So I'm going to use food for this, just like I was using for body handling. Here, bud. So I'm going to get Otis interested in a piece of food, and then I'm going to bring the brush out. Just do a couple strokes. Yes. What a good boy. We'll do that again. Yes. What a good boy. And I might do this on a couple different parts. So like maybe I'll work on his chest. A couple different areas, I should say. Yes, good boy. Good job, bud. Okay, we're gonna move on to the nail clippers. So again, not actually clipping nails this week, just getting him used to seeing and feeling those nail clippers. So ideally, I would like him standing for this. Oh my goodness, buddy. So I'm just gonna bring him down his spine to start. Yes. And we'll do that again. Yes. Oh my goodness, buddy. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to work on just touching the nail clippers to each paw. Oh my goodness. Yes. Good boy. Yes. Yes. And get this last back paw. Can you stand for me, bud? Oh my goodness. Yes, good boy. Okay. And then from here, we're going to move into picking up each paw while also hanging on to the nail clippers. So again, I'm going to get him on a piece of food. And then I'm going to start up at the top of his leg, bring my hand down, and then pick up a paw with the nail clippers in my hand. Yes, good boy. Oh my goodness, bud. Trying to get him to stay in a standing position for a second here. Yes, there we go, buddy. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna get him to turn so I can try to get those last two paws. You are so silly. Here, it's in this hand. Yes, good boy. Let's get this last front paw here. Yes. Good job, buddy. And then the last thing we worked on this week is continuing to handle their paws while isolating one toe, getting one nail out in preparation for a nail trim. So now when I pick up his paw, I'm just going to isolate one toe and bring out a nail. Yes. Mark that with the yes and feed. Good boy. See if I can get him standing again for his back paw. My goodness, buddy. Yes. And then let me get him to turn so I can get the other side here. Ooh, what's that? Yes. Okay, and then we're going to do this last front paw. Yes, good boy. That is it for Otis's week 2 video recap. Make sure you're looking at your video library as well as your handouts. Those will give you much more detailed information on everything we worked on with Otis in week 2. Good job, buddy.